Jai Ma. Welcome, everyone. Today we will be beginning our exploration of another key Vedantic concept, and that is the concept of Brahman. Diving into this presence that is within us and within everything that is everywhere through one of Acharya Shunya's previously taught satsangas. But first, before we begin our exploration of Brahman, we will open with an invocation of gratitude, of humility, of reverence to our lineage, this tradition from which this wisdom comes, tradition of thousands of years, beginning with the divine source and the sages who received this wisdom in deep states of meditation and gave us these sacred texts, and then to our present lineage of teachers who have passed this wisdom on from teacher to student, beginning with Shanti Prakash Acharya, followed by Ayodhyanath Acharya, and our dear teacher Shunyacharya or Acharya Shunya in the present. So I invite you to join me as this invocation is on your screen, to chant along if you may wish, or simply to listen. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Prakashaya Namaha. Om Ayodhyanathaya Namaha. Om Shunyacharya Namaha. Om Atmatattvam Namaha. Om Vidyatattvam Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. With that, I would now like to invite Sadhvi Ishani to take us forward.
Jai Ma, everyone. Welcome. All right, well, today we begin. We've spent the past few weeks delving into what is this soup of samsara we find ourselves stuck in again and again. Now let us explore what is there, what is left when we extract ourselves from all of our attachments that keep us stuck inside of samsara. So let us begin. Our flow for today is we'll experience Acharya Shunya's satsanga on this topic of Brahman. It's 20-25 minutes. Then we'll again have 5 minutes of that silent contemplation where we let that satsanga reverberate in our deepest being without writing, without drawing, just seeing what emerges, what new understanding we have from that teaching. Then we'll have some time to engage with each other and share and review. So let us begin with the satsanga. Thank you, Suchira, for sharing that with us.
There is an Upanishad called the Taittiriya Upanishad. And it's all right if you don't write it. You can just write. The Upanishad says that there is a reality. There is a reality. A spiritual reality, dear students, that we should now start entertaining the possibility of its existence. And this reality is known by 3 Sanskrit terms, and I shall explain them to you. The first one is known as Satyam. Can you say that? Satyam. The other one is known as Jnanam. Third is known as Anantam. Brahma. So this reality is known as Brahman or Brahma, and it comes from the root word Bri, which means that which is the biggest, that which is eternally expanding, that which is inexhaustibly boundless. So now, so that this doesn't remain intellectual to you, imagine, most of us will imagine that my being, Yasha, if I ask you, where's your being, then you can quote your height, your width, your weight, your density, your degrees, your knowledge, your profession, your relationships, your current status, and that becomes your dimensions. Is it not true? So here you are feeling like you have pretty serious limits to who you are, is it not? So this is where I am telling you, with the aid of Upanishads, it's not true. In fact, this perception of smallness is a mind-born, samsara-born perception, and actually you are boundless because you are part of that reality which is known as Brahman. So the Vedas, the Upanishads, conceived of a supreme reality that is an all-inclusive, limitless spiritual reality. This has a lot of significance for us, and how should we relate Brahman in our day-to-day life is something I will talk to after I describe some of its qualities. Is that okay? So it is known as Brahman, but it has been described as Satyam Jnanam Anantam. It has been given these three words. It is like the definition of Brahman, and I shall explain to you one by one. But these are not these are not adjectives. It's not like, there is Yasha, and Yasha is very skilled. Because that's just like, well, Yasha may one day not be skilled at something, and he may make a mistake, and generally he's skilled, so adjectives come on and off, right? But can you remove sweetness from sugar? Can you? Cannot. Can you remove radiance from sunlight? You cannot. Can you remove wetness from water? Cannot. So Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, these three words, which have meanings, are like the inherent essence of the supreme reality that we are going to begin to hear about through the Upanishads, because nobody else will have this conversation with you. But Upanishads want you to have this conversation because it has a meaning for you, because it is actually your nature too. And if you connect with that even those drops of that nature, your whole life changes. And I think some of you have been connecting to its micro drops and you feel your life is changing. Give me a loud yes or no. What if you connected all the way to this reality? That is known as awakening, self-realization. And it's possible. It's completely possible. So and nothing changes. You don't grow wings or have to have a halo or have to save the world even. Because you shall understand that the world does not need to be saved, because probably the world is not real also. So you shall figure out all these things with me. Are we ready for the journey? What does Satyam mean? Does anybody know that? Truth. What is truth then? Because my truth versus your truth versus the truth of Christians versus the truth of the subsect of the other Christians and then Hindus and then the Buddhists. What is truth? That, according to the Upanishad, truth can be only that which remains unchanged in all phases of time, which transcends time and space. So it transcends temporal changes, spatial changes, and that there is indeed one reality, the reality of Brahman or pure consciousness that never changes, and therefore it is known as Satyam. So what we are understanding from this is that we are now going to go beyond the mind. Does it change or not change? Changes by the minute. What about the body? Changes. You may not see those changes, but that too is changing by the nanoseconds. So we want to now connect with that dimension of our being that is actually beyond this. I'd like to connect with that. And when I connect with that, this just feels in a whole different experience. So the difference between plants and animals is that animals can express much more through their five senses and their somewhat primitive mind. They can express their needs. My dog brings his toy and he knows he can express his need that I want to play, or I'm upset, or I need to be cuddled. He can ask for his basic needs to be met. We humans can also do that. But we humans have been given the privilege now to take care of our other needs, the needs to know who I am. What answers the others found, and then to connect with those unbelievable answers that indeed my true self or my basic nature is one with Brahman, and that it is Satyam. And from Satyam comes the word Sat also, Satyam. And then the other word is Jnanam. Can you say that? Yeah. Very good. Jnana means awareness. The awareness principle within you, not the instrument of awareness like the mind. The mind takes that awareness and then goes to town with it, does it not? It weaves its own, castles in the air and all kinds of things. But the pure awareness, the object-led awareness, when the mind is asleep, then also it is aware. So when we are dreaming and creating castles and towns and mountains, then also something is aware. Then when we are awake, we see another world, then also something is aware. When we are deep sleep and there is no dream also, then also something is aware which says, I slept, I did not dream. That I, that awareness, that outlives, that awareness was present before our birth. That awareness is present through this particular avatar, and this awareness shall outlive when we drop the body. The awareness still is. This awareness is known as Jnanam. This awareness, which then gets, which when channeled through the brain or the mind or the cells or the neurons, makes them intelligent. But it is an independent one. It doesn't need matter to be aware. Matter needs it to be aware. Do you see that? When this awareness separates itself from matter, the brain can be as evolved as it wants. It can't function. It's dead. The nervous system is just dead. So matter needs awareness. Awareness does not require matter. So therefore, awareness, consciousness, the conscious principle itself, this comes from you. So if you close your eyes now, please do that. Trust me, all of you here on the webinar, all of you, and become aware. Let awareness be aware of itself rather than the brain, the world, the body. This pure awareness doesn't require anything to be self-aware because it is what is upa, closest to you. It is your inherent nature. So instead of seeping out this awareness through your eyes into the world, let it go inwards to be with itself. This is Jnanam. This awareness always is, always will be. It fears not change or death. And this awareness shall never lose its ability to be self-aware, to be cognizant. When it comes through the brain, it comes out as intelligence. When it comes through the heart, it comes out as knowingness. When it comes through the spirit, it becomes all-knowing. But it all comes from this original awareness. But it is not the instruments of awareness. Meditation is greeting this awareness. Original awareness. A cup can come through the awareness, a pen can come through the awareness, a trauma can come through the awareness. But awareness itself remains pure. It is only a witness, intelligent awareness of the cup and the pen and the traumatic incident. Awareness itself remains untainted and uncolored. So this is, Brahman is truth, Brahman is pure awareness, and Anantam. Anantam means it shall last forever. It is infinite. There is no restriction to awareness. There is no, so when this existence, which is self-aware and universally aware, has infinite existence, it is known as Ananta, Anantam. Can you say it? Ananta. So let us define Brahman. Satyam, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Beautiful. Now this, how we see everywhere through the subjective samsara reality, qualities, good, bad, less, more, white, brown, yellow, black, right? Don't we do all that? We are full of qualities. And what a suffering, what a story, what a segregation. But the scriptures tell us that the ultimate spirituality is nirgunaha, or qualityless. There is no quality, because any one quality, if we say Brahman is Indian with a Roman nose, oh my God, then he cannot be the one with the bigger nose or the smaller nose. But Brahman is, if it is pure existence, pure awareness, and pure infinity, then it has to be everywhere. So therefore, Brahman is, when we say without quality, is not a limitation, it is a freedom of this supreme reality to be in all manifestations and yet itself be nirgunaha. The gunas of rajas, agitation, tamas, inertia, and even sattva, nobility, does not hold it. So therefore, this supreme reality is not the domain of the temple and the church and the mosque alone. It is also in the criminal and in the lost one. It is everywhere. We have to be understanding that this supreme reality transcends all qualities. It is all pervasive. It is sarvagata, sarvavyapi. It is everywhere. Sarva means everywhere. Vyapi means spread. Not just in this Milky Way, but across all those universes that we occasionally understand. We are like a blip in this whole map, and then there is more. And then there is more, says the Bhagavad Gita, says Lord Krishna, that, because Brahman is constantly expanding. So in the blink of an eye, this magical universe triples itself. And so this it is everywhere. So this is not, imagine how the Upanishads leaped beyond a very small anthropomorphic god of let's gonna make this god and make them wear a sari or a king or a Roman clothing and put them here on the top this mountain or this cloud, but instead went for that ultimate reality and made us understand that no kind of restriction or boundary can limit this. So we are being asked to expand our heart to understand that what the stories of samsara was telling us probably are not the only version of reality. And then it is nitya, it is eternal. Eternal, not like the eternal in hell, eternal in heaven, but that time cannot start it, disrupt it, or stop it. It is nishkriyam, it is great stillness within. How many of you felt this stillness when you went in? Anyone? Yeah. So there is this stillness because while the mind, because samsara, due to these unconscious attachments and aversions, is super active, is it not? Because it wants its desires to be fulfilled. But when we connect with this reality of Brahman, we shall only find stillness because it is complete. And there is movement only if there is lack. There will be movement if you want something. But what if I tell you now, through the special words of the Upanishads, that your true self is not a beggar? What if I tell you that there is a reality present within you that I would love for you and show you the way to connect to it that is quite full? After all, you think that if I have so many clothes, I shall be full. If I had a relationship, I shall be full. If I had a child, I shall be full. If I had a house, I shall be full. And it's a feeling, right? It's a contentment feeling. What if you could connect to that contentment feeling while sitting right now? So after all, that fullness, that contentment is actually a spiritual situation. And that is what we want to go for in Vedanta. And it is independent. We already talked about it. It doesn't borrow. It's intelligence, it's awareness, it's spread from anything, this supreme reality. And so that is wonderful. So it is known as that without a beginning, anadi. It is that which has had no birth, so it's forever. So it's not even the Big Bang that started it, because it is beginningless. It is birthless, ajaha. It is deeply indestructible or immutable. So aksharam, it is immortal, amritam. So with this brief interlude into your potential spiritual journey, I'm going to take a pause here to tell you, why does it matter? Why does it matter for us to know the big goal? While we're caught in our own fish bowls of attachments, aversion, grief, anger, delusions, acting out from that delusion, which then further strengthens our attachments and awareness, and we're caught in this cycle, are we not? Because to be able to get out of one kind of cage and to discover how to get out of that cage of the own mind and repeatedly doing blind actions in that cage, right? Fluttering around crazily, hurting our wings, hurting others, biting ourselves in the process. Doesn't life feel like that sometimes? We abuse ourselves, we hurt others. We're all kind of caught up in this mental smallness. So I had to show you the ultimate bigness, even though it may sound like so far from us. And that is how a student begins. Yeah, my true self is infinite, but I'm feeling so broken. However, it's really important to know what is possible and where we are, because only then a map makes sense. Because if we don't know where we are heading to our absolute freedom, absolute bigness, the whole goal of then trying to be painless can just become more psychotherapy and counseling. Whereas what I'm trying to tell you here is that I'm not here to save you. The rishis don't want to save you. You want to be told about your own true essence. And this is the path of Jnana Yoga, which now hold on to your seatbelts here. You are being told that just as thoughts led you away into a cycle of unconsciousness, grief, anger, and delusion, you can use the same thoughts, turn them inwards, and grope your way to what feels like a very far away possibility, to a closer, till you reach it. So in Jnana Yoga, you change your thoughts and you start moving towards what felt like an improbable self and recognize it. So therefore, you use your thoughts and you keep listening to it and you keep experiencing and experimenting with, is there a higher self in me which is invisible? But the Vedanta, Upanishads and scriptures, the Shastra tell me that it exists. Shall I explore it? Shall I meditate upon it? Shall I pray to it? Shall I depend upon it? Shall I talk about it in community? Shall I write about it? And then your thoughts all start, instead of being caught up in the world, they go inward, inward, inward. And guess what? The rishis tell us, well, what is truth doesn't have to be looked too hard to find, because it's the nearest to you. And because it is always there, will be, and is your true essence, you are like a little child. Instead of rummaging for the toys in one closet, you went to the right closet and it says, I'm here. Itself reveals itself to you. So you awaken without needing a priest or a yogi or even your guru to guide you to yourself. Your guru is only guiding you to the point in Advaita Vedanta where the guru or the Acharya is showing you the map and saying, not that closet, this one.
That is our satsanga for today. So now I invite you to take 5 minutes and just allow all of that to filter through. So in silence, we'll take 5 minutes and allow that to sift through our mind, echo in our being. Go ahead and take that time now. You're welcome to unmute yourself so that we're in silence together. And take this 5 minutes to, as she said, bring that awareness and allow it to be aware of itself. As you contemplate, keep bringing your awareness back to, what did I just hear in this satsanga? And how is it reverberating within me? Continuing to bring your awareness back, not just intellectually understanding, but the feeling, the knowingness that's come with what you've heard. As the mind may wander, continue to bring it back with curiosity and gentleness to your inner experience of that satsanga. In our final 1 minute of silent contemplation, see if a word emerges or a phrase or your core key, most shining takeaway from the satsanga today. Gently bring your awareness back to the breath, to the space around you where you're seated, back to this circle, this room where we are. If there's something now that you'd like to jot down or make a note of, you're welcome to. We can put ourselves back on mute as we prepare to receive shares from anyone who would like to share. So now I invite you to raise your hand either just like this or in the Zoom tools. And as sharing your clarity, sharing that crystalline kind of understanding that emerged from within you, that would be beautiful to hear. So if there's someone who would like to share, Arya, did you raise your hand? Did you want to share? Yes, you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes. That was lovely. And I was reminded of the game of hide and seek, that it seems so clear that we have been set on this path of discovering our true self. And I thought the closet description was kind of interesting. So that's what occurred to me, this playful game of hide and seek, and we're on this path of trying to discover our true selves.
Thank you, Arya, for offering us this playful way of looking at the Brahman that's hidden and then our journey to find it. Yes. Thank you. Isha.
Jema, everyone. I think in this satsang, something that really stood out to me was a quote that Acharya ji shared, which was that it's not only in a temple or a church or a mosque where we can find Brahman, but also in the criminal and in the lost one. So I wrote that down because for me, that's something that I think about a lot is as human beings, we're very complicated. And one person might do something that's not great one day and then do something that is really nice another day. And we are complicated people. And to me, the way that I interpreted that quote was not that we shouldn't be responsible for our actions or not that we should just say, well, it's fine, I'm Brahman anyway, but rather just that no matter the external circumstances or even the decisions that we might make, internally there is something that cannot be broken. And I think that helps you be a lot more compassionate, not just towards yourself, but also to other people in society that otherwise, we kind of tend to discard or throw away. So I just think compassion is the key to just identifying that God or the divine is in everyone. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, when we begin to see Brahman everywhere, that compassion that arises. With a personal responsibility and accountability. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share what emerged for them? Yes, James, I see you.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things really stood out for me. One was the fact that consciousness or awareness was never born and will never die. And so that kind of suggests that consciousness that we have is not being produced by the brain, which I know is a scientific kind of paradigm that consciousness is a byproduct of the brain. So here we have this suggestion, if you like, that consciousness is a field and we are able to tap into that field. And even further, she said that matter needs awareness. Awareness doesn't need matter. So that brought up for me maybe the idea that everything is consciousness in a sense, and it's consciousness taking the form. So it's a limited form and it's maybe hidden in a way just by the covering, but it's still consciousness. And I think the other thing I loved was the fact that we are that consciousness. And it reminded me of the story of the king who goes around his kingdom looking for the king and not realizing he will never find the king because he is the king. So yeah, it was wonderful. And this bigness that, yeah, we can participate in this field of consciousness, which has all of the resources that we need, and this practice is allowing us to become familiar how to contact it and how to bring it into our personal lives, and actually maybe even to experience that everything that we see actually is consciousness, but it's just in a limited, it's hidden because it's in a shape or a form. Thank you.
Yes. Well, it's good we're buckled into our seatbelts, isn't it? Because she's saying it's really blows open that idea of expansiveness, like you said, that never ending, undying, without birth, without death. And it feels like each of those words, she gave a many, many list, right, of many different words. And it's like each one, you sit with that idea and then you go, but if that's the case, then everything is consciousness. And then we sit with one more word and we think of, well, but if that's the case, then everything is Brahman, so each one has a explosive, revelatory effect on us. Yes. Thank you, James. I like the imagery of the king looking for the king as well. That's very potent. Jayanti.
Jeremiah, everyone. For me, what emerged after listening to this satsang was just one word, and it's completeness. And this word resonated so strong within me when she said, close your eyes. And because everyone is looking for this completeness, right, in this life. There's this, everybody's projected outwardly looking in things or relationship, friendships, material things, something that makes us feel complete. Because there is this sense of, I wouldn't say unhappiness, but when we talk about vasanas and desires, there's always this pulling outward, looking for something that then if we ask ourselves, it's like, what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that I'm missing that I need and that it's in the world and it's in this samsara, in this big ocean? And then in this satsang, she pointed out that it's so easy when she said, wait a minute, the same thoughts that take us every day in that direction, looking for completeness in that direction, maybe buying something new, getting a bigger car, a bigger house, or These are just example. It's so simple. Just turn around that same thought and point it towards you. And it's so easy. It's right there. You don't need anything else because we are already complete. And so this gave me this sense of just peace. Like, wow, I mean, this is it. It can be very simple. And I know maybe tomorrow I'll wake up and this completeness is not there anymore because, I'm not perfect. But for a moment, I had that feeling. I said, yes, I am complete. I don't need anything else. I am Brahman. That's it. What more do I need in this life? Nothing else. And again, tomorrow I'm probably gonna wake up and forget it a little bit, and I would need to come back, again, turn around that same thought that tomorrow morning is taking me outwardly again. Okay, wait a minute. Turn around, you turn, come back here. So that's what.
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And especially when one of these words resonates, a practice to have using that method of turning our thoughts back in, like she said, our thoughts lead us away, but then we use that very same mechanism to remember. When there's one word that resonates with you, like that stillness, that inactivity, that can become a practice where you just come in and you say, let me connect to my innate beingness, my innate uh, state of stillness. And that stillness is something that doesn't have to grasp anything and hold it close. It doesn't have to take something to fill up a crack or a hole or a void. It's just still. And then when I touch that stillness, I feel there's nothing to grasp for because I'm everywhere. I'm all pervading. So when there's one of these words, uh, to prevent these from becoming a list where you say Brahman is this one, this one, this one, this one, you can't just savor one of them, uh, which is a wonderful practice for cultivating a familiarity with our own self by accessing it from one of these points. And the other thing that she also mentioned, which is important to remember, is that all of these words, they're not adjectives, they're descriptions of the essence. And that also is something uh, to ponder, to sit with, to savor. Yeah. Yes, Nancy shares in the chat a quote from Acharya Shunya on you are already whole, WHOLE. Stop trying to be holy, HOLY. This is a quote from Acharya Shunya, which is so profound, which means, it has so many aspects of it, but we can't perform our Brahmanness. We can just reside in it. We can just be in it. Yes, beautiful. Would someone else like to share anything at this point? Julianne.
Dharma, everyone. I did love that what you mentioned, that they're not adjectives, to remember that, because I think I really had them in my mind, kind of like these descriptors. But it makes sense that it's something that's so beyond description, like only like if it's near guna, it can't really be described with adjectives. Um, so I did that really, I kind of needed that piece. And I also really liked the closet analogy that she gave at the end. And I was just visualizing this closet, but it was kind of like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe closet, where if you look in it one way, you just see some clothes and some stuff. And that's kind of like limited reality. or the clothes that we put on to try to be someone or something. But there's like looking just a little harder, like spreading through the clothes and going past the clothes. And then there's this whole world in there that's just, it's indestructible, it's immortal, it has no bounds, and it's all the things that Brahman is. And that, like, when I notice it when I'm sitting and meditating, there's always that choice, like, oh, there's a thought, and then follow the thought, or return back to the stillness, like, or like see the samsara, or like she said, there's always this choice, like you can go inward instead of chasing each little thing, going outward and chasing that tangent or that thread or that thought. But that instead of it just being in meditation, that the goal is to just every time you're noticing samsara, do the same thing that you would do in meditation and just be like, oh, there's that thought or there's the samsara building. And now I just need to like go a little further into the closet and get beyond these small little things and go to where it's totally expansive.
Yes.
So I really liked the closet thing too. But
Yeah.
one thing I had a question about, uh, the word anadi and then ajaha or ajaha, because there was something she was saying was independent that doesn't borrow. And then I wrote down without a beginning for anadi, but then ajaha was birthless, which seems like without a beginning. So I was wondering if anadi is the doesn't borrow.
She actually, for the word independent or like self-sufficient, she didn't give a Sanskrit word for that.
Okay. Okay.
That's how you got, yeah, that's the short answer. But yes, anadi is that without beginning, like
Okay.
beginningless. And then ajaha is without a birth. So slight, I mean, very similar implication,
Okay.
but without birth or death. And then without a beginning kind of just means with it no beginning and no end, just forever expanding as well. Yeah. So closely related, but we didn't get there was no Sanskrit word for that, independent.
Okay. Great.
And thank you, Julianne, for your earlier shares. And I want to I want to share one the quote from her about these being adjectives. She said that these are not adjectives applied to Brahman that come and go. So it's not like they're there sometimes and not there other times, because that itself would be antithetical to the definition of Brahman as Satyam, that which is unchanged throughout past, present, future. So she says these words are the inherent essence of the supreme reality as described by the Upanishads, which is relevant to each of us because it's our nature too. So as we continue to contemplate on how these descriptions of Brahman are not adjectives, they are the inherent essence of Brahman, we also continue to remember that Brahman is not out there, but it's in here. So I wanted to just bring us back also to that idea as well. Yes. Would anyone else like to share at this moment?
Sadhvi Ishani, there's a question in the chat from.
Nice.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Never mind. I think I realized.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was late, so I didn't realize that those words were related to the qualities of the essence of Brahma. That's what I was kind of confused.
Oh, right. Yes. So all of these are descriptions of Brahman. And you said in the chat, you're saying That,
Am I
I believe Acharya Shunya used the word sakshi, witness, as another descriptive word relating to jnanam, awareness. Yes, this is
aware?
from Kalyani, wrote this as well.
Oh, very good.
Yes, sakshi is the witnessing observer, so it is that presence.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so these words are all related. These are all related words. Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah. I want to take a few minutes before we close and if continue if you would like to share also, you can raise your hand as well. But I want to just anchor us into these three key words that she gave us to define Brahman. And the three words was Brahman is Satyam, Gnanam, and Anantam. Brahma. That means it's these three things. And I'll just share those three words just so we really know for sure. We're very anchored in what those technically mean. The first word was Satyam. And Satyam we often see translated as truth. Sat, truth. Satyam, it's the truth. And the definition, this is a very, very specific, but very important for us as we're reviewing key foundational concepts of Vedanta. Satya means that which doesn't change across time and space. So this in our common parlance, we talk about truth, and I have a truth, and you have a truth, and I have to speak my truth. And that's a different usage of the word truth. So when we're talking in Advaita Vedanta about Satya, we mean this, that which doesn't change across time and space. So it's very, I'm highlighting and bolding it because this becomes very, very useful later on as concepts continue to be layered to have this clarity. Yes? And then second word was jnana, awareness. So jnanam sometimes also we see used meaning knowledge or wisdom. And we say we're receiving jnanam, we're receiving wisdom, jnana yoga. You know, we see that word in many different contexts, and it can have different shades of meaning. But here, when we're talking about it as a defining essential aspect of Brahman, we're talking about its awareness, that pure objectless awareness. So sometimes, often we think of awareness in relationship to something. I'm aware of how I feel. I'm aware of the situation. I'm aware of my struggles. I'm aware of my strengths. That is all awareness in practice. That's all awareness being employed. But jnanam as an essential aspect of Brahman means objectless awareness, when nothing is there, when there's no objects to be aware of, people, places, things, intangible concepts. It's that awareness. So I'm again highlighting, bolding this because this definition of jnanam asks us to separate from the object. Can we be aware when we are, it is that awareness that is present when we're awake, when we're dreaming, when we're sleeping. It is that constant presence, no matter what comes up in the field, it is simply aware. And here's why Nancy brings up this parallel to the sakshi, the witness. It's like that, yeah. It's that awareness. So as we meditate and sit with this word, we're doing that process of awareness, becoming aware of awareness alone. So that objectless awareness is very key. And it asks us to remember that awareness, becoming aware of itself, that awareness is not an object either. And so as we become aware of our own awareness, it's not like we're looking at ourselves from the outside. And this is where the mind has to be a little bit dropped. We're going beyond the mind, right? Because we start getting a little crunchy in our thinking of how can awareness be aware of itself. That's why we have to just breathe, relax, let go, and then come into awareness of that inner stillness. So this jnanam is the second word she brings. And then the third definition is anantam. Infinite, it means. Unrestricted, boundless, limitless, just incomprehensibly vast. And here again, this invites us to transcend our thinking as well. So remember that samsara is all happening in the mind. Samsara is all happening in our mind, right? It's a thought-based cycle of suffering. Brahman is beyond samsara, not contained in samsara. So this word anantam, ananta, reminds us that our true essential essence is beyond the categorization, the compartmentalization, the pixelation that the mind does. It's beyond that. It's beyond that. And as she said, these words can feel big and incomprehensible with the mind, and yet it's our closest close of truth within. So I want to highlight those three things. And I wanted to also share how these, and some of you have mentioned how we can use some of these words to pop our samsara. I think in one of the previous satsangas, she said, we're moment to moment, we're popping the bubble of our samsara. And these words can also be tools to use as we discern between, is this samsara or is this my deeper reality? I see your question, Rochelle, and we'll come there just now. Yeah. So I'll give an example. Moment to moment, when we notice the mind is becoming active, and we notice that we're feeling drawn into the world, and we have that thought which says, maybe this is samsara, but we don't have the clarity yet of, we're still a little bit in it. We can sit with these words. And so when I have a situation, say, in front of me, or I want something to happen a certain way, I can use these three words by sitting with it and saying, okay, I want this thing to happen. And I ask myself, is this true? Was it true yesterday? Is it really true right now? Is it going to be true tomorrow? Will it be true 5,000 years from now? Will it be true a millennia from now? Is it satyam? This thing that is taking up my thinking and taking up my consciousness and pulling me in that direction. Is it satyam? And very quickly, the answer is obviously no. Obviously not. So it's not, okay. So that's my first clue that I'm in the realm of samsara and not dwelling in my Brahman essence at the moment. Okay. Now, what happens if I just bring awareness? Is this something that is pure awareness, or is it a manifestation of that awareness? Is this something that is just awake and observing, or is it pushing and pulling and moving somewhere? Is it still, or is it active? And very much often it's active, it's wanting, it's moving, it's trying to pull itself together or reach itself out. Okay, so it's not pure awareness. It's not pure awareness. That means, again, okay, now evidence number 2, I'm in the realm of samsara. This is not Brahman that I'm thinking of. And then lastly, is it anantam? Is it limitless? When I am in this situation or I'm thinking of this thing, are there boundaries around it? Are there hard edges? Does it have any edges? where it's either happening or not happening, where it's liked or not liked, where it belongs to me or belongs to them. I keep looking to see, is it expansive or is it boxing me? Am I trying to create a limit, or is it just flowing everywhere all at once? And of course, the answer always will be no. It's very limited. It's very boxed. Something I want to happen in a timeline, something that I want to be in my space or not in my space. I'm trying to create all these limits. You don't have to think very hard when you use these three words to investigate. The moment you sit down to do this practice, you know you're going to find out that that's the samsara and that your true essence is something else. But it's a beautiful way to immediately drop in and have clarity and say, ah, that's my mind dealing with this world of objects. The objective reality is there. My mind is churning it. But let me also be aware of, let me come back to this place of Brahman, of my deepest essence. And in that space, in that little gap between the samsara and the inner indwelling Brahman, the Atma, which is another word for the Brahman, we call it when it's indwelling, it's Atma. That little gap I create brings a quieting of samsara, a real quieting of samsara. So this is one way to, one, review what these words are, two, practice having a visceral experience of what is truth, what is awareness, what is a boundlessness. It's also a practical way to quiet the samsara and spend some time coming home to Brahman. And you can do this with any of these words that are meaningful, any of these words. Now I see here a discussion in the chat, which Rochelle was asking. These three words, how do they relate to Brahman if it's adjectiveless? And a reply is from Shweta, these three are essence of Brahman, not adjectives or qualifiers. So when you think of mother, you think love. It's kind of like that. It's the difference between a loving mother versus when you think of mother, you feel love, and that is a personification of love. Thank you for this discussion. Yes. So one is that these adjectives don't come and go. It's not like Brahman is everywhere, but sometimes it's boxed, or Brahman is absolute stillness, but sometimes it's active. They're always the case. It's part of its essential nature. And the classical examples she gives are, you have water, you cannot remove wetness from water. You have sugar, you cannot remove sugar. You cannot remove sweetness from sugar. You have sunlight, you cannot remove radiance from sunlight. So these are words, yes, they describe, but they're describing the essence of it. So they cannot be removed from Brahman. They are always present in Brahman. And these words, we're reverse engineering the experience of Brahman. So the experience of Brahman was self-revealed to sages, yogis, who went within, said there seems to be something here. They were self-revealed to this idea of Brahman. And then they came back out and they said, you will not believe what I found in this closet inside of me. And people said, well, what was it? What was it like? And they said, well, here's what seems to be some descriptors of it. So like that, they're, again, reports of what that nature of Brahman is. They're describing its nature. So perhaps this helps as well. another, we'll just take 2 more minutes here. This was beautiful, what Acharya Shunya shared also, where we can think to ourselves, if I have this higher self within me, which is invisible, and this Vedanta, the Upanishads, the scriptures, they tell me that it exists. I'm being told by reputable folks that there's something called Brahman and it's inside me and it's in the world. Then shall I explore it? Shall I meditate upon it? Shall I pray to it? Shall I depend on it? Shall I talk about it in community? Shall I write about it? This idea that we're being introduced to something that is the closest of the closest. And now we can just be with it, engage with it in a multitude of ways. So this is another invitation that Acharya Shunya gave us in this satsanga of how to continue to engage with this presence within in a feeling and a knowing way. Yeah. Any final other thoughts or questions before we close today? How are we feeling in a word? Just to receive this teaching of Brahman. I'm curious, yeah. Joyful. Nice. I'm also curious if it feels very distant. Does it feel overwhelming? Or does it feel at the beginning? Yeah. Empowered. A good place to experiment in. Connected and still. Restoration of memory. Yes. Expansion. Curious and peaceful. Curious to explore that relation. Relieved. Yeah, relieved. We're not alone. There's something there. Privileged. Beautiful. So finally, Acharya Shunya said, why are we learning? Why study something? Why explore these words when it feels so far, far away? What's the purpose? And it's to show us that goal, because between here and there's a map. There's very clear, very methodical, very incremental steps that we can take as seekers who are desiring to know that self, who want moksha, who want the freedom from samsara. But we should know where we're going, isn't it? So now she said, okay, that's where we're going. That's where we're going. So it's good to know where we're headed. And in the next satsanga, next week, we will continue that exploration of how does this apply to us? How is this relevant to us? And what relevance does this Brahman have when we're in process, when we're on the way? That which cannot be named. Thank you, Sakshi, for giving this reflection as well. And yes, we use these words to tap in. They're using our thoughts to redirect them back to the deepest self. But we're being redirected back to something that is wordless. So give yourself permission all to simply let go of those words also and simply reside in there. And if you ever have a question of, am I imagining this? Am I creating more delusion? Am I projecting something? You can come back to those questions. But is this thing I'm experiencing truth? Am I touching something that is unchanging over time? Am I touching something that is pure awareness? There's nothing it's aware of, it's only awareness. It enlivens the things that allow me to engage with the world. Am I touching something that is ananta, that is limitless, boundless? Am I getting crumbs of these experiences as I contemplate on this space within? As he shares, I just heard today that when Jung was near death, he was asked if he believed in God. He said, I don't believe in him, I know him. That is how I'm feeling right now and connecting to Brahman and how it's being described. Yeah, there's a knowingness, a knowingness. So that is our invitation this week, to become familiar with that which is within us, experience a knowingness of it. Yes. Visiting Brahman in the wall at the back of the closet into the boundless. Yes, stepping through an inner doorway. So with that, we will close. And I think there's nothing else left to say. So let us just simply be with our own inner experience of Brahman. Kalyani, I invite you to bring our closing slides and our closing prayer. Tim.
Thank you, Sadhvi Ishani, for guiding us in this deep mananam, this deep contemplation and churning and reflection. So we will close now with a prayer from another Upanishad, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which also reminds us of this journey of where we are going. And indeed, there are some words that we have heard from Acharya Shunya in her satsanga today, such as Amritam, that immortality. And so I invite you to join in chanting if you would like, as it is on your screen, or you may simply listen. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Jai Ma, we will meet again soon.